22-year-old Lindsay Hawker was on her way back from the Koiwa, Tokyo branch of Nova School, where she taught English. At the train station, a young man approached her and claimed she was his English teacher. Not recognizing him, she insisted she wasn't and went about her business. Relentless, this man cycled after her and chased her until she reached her apartment. Outside the apartment, he asked her to give him water. Perhaps taking precautions, she invited him in so he could see she was living with 2 other housemates. Unbeknownst to her, she had just opened the door to her death. Britain, Lindsay Ann Hawker was born on the 30th of December 1984 in Coventry, England. From early childhood, Lindsay has always been an outstanding daughter. She attended King Henry VIII School in Coventry before proceeding to the University of Leeds, where she earned a first-class honours degree in biology in 2006. Although she had plans to pursue a master's degree, she decided to take a year break and relocated to Japan, where she taught English at the Koiwa, Tokyo branch of Nova in Japan, which she felt was the safest place in the world for her to be. Even when her parents expressed displeasure about moving so far away, she seemed fascinated and was convinced she couldn't be anywhere safer. On a fateful day, she was coming back from work and met a man who claimed she was his English teacher. In an email to her boyfriend Ryan, who was back home in England, she said the man ran after her as she cycled and requested water when she got to her apartment. After letting him in, he took out a piece of paper and a pen, instantly drew a portrait of Lindsay and signed it with his name, address, and email. This must have really impressed Lindsay because when he asked for a private class the following Sunday in a cafe, she obliged. Moreover, it wasn't against Nova policies. In fact, it was very welcomed, as long as the teacher and student met in a public space and left a note containing the details of the venue. So, on Sunday morning, the 24th of March 2007, Lindsay left a note containing her estranged student's address and said bye to her housemates. Her housemates thought nothing of it as she walked out the door. Just another day, another lesson. Meanwhile, across the city, 28-year-old Tatsuya Ichihashi, a horticulture graduate with no job, sat in a cafe waiting for Lindsay Hawker. After the class, it started to rain heavily. Ironically, Lindsay boarded the same taxi as Tatsuya, and they drove to his apartment. At his apartment, Lindsay got down to go in with him but instructed the taxi driver to wait for her to return. Instead, 7 minutes later, when she didn't come out, the driver left to take another job. Back home in England, where they were 9 hours behind Tokyo time, Lindsay's parents, Bill and Julia, heard the news that an earthquake had occurred in Japan. They tried to contact their daughter, but she never responded. At first, Bill thought little of it because Lindsay frequently contacted her parents through calls, Skype, and emails, so he expected her to return their calls. Panic set in after 24 hours, and at the dawn of another day, they still hadn't heard from her. While still wondering what might have happened to their daughter, a call came in from her workplace stating that she hadn't shown up for work, which was very unusual since she had never missed a day. Meanwhile, Lindsay's friends tried to report her missing after she didn't return home, but in a twisted turn of events, the information was not passed on to the appropriate authorities until March 26th, around 2:30 p.m, after she failed to show up for work. Even at that, it still took the police 3 hours and 10 minutes after the missing reports were filed before they sent 2 officers to Tatsuya's apartment. It is believed that it took this long because, upon research, Tatsuya didn't have any prior convictions, so they didn't consider him a threat until they found out he had a previous allegation of theft and injury. They found out that 6 years prior, he had assaulted a woman in a street robbery, but in line with Japanese law, his father paid 1 million yen to buy the victim's silence. That new information prompted them to take immediate action. They couldn't barge into Tatsuya's apartment as they didn't have a proper cause, so the officers went through his neighbor's apartment and onto the balcony next to Tatsuya's home. They were right next to his balcony. Although the house had no lights, they could see that he had dragged his bath onto it, and a body was lying inside, but they couldn't make out who it was. Sensing the severity of the situation, the officers called for backup, and by 7:45 p.m., 7 more officers had joined them, making the total 9. At exactly 9:45 p.m., Tatsuya emerged from his house barefoot and wearing a rucksack containing his gym clothes. 2 officers stood at the door and informed him they needed to check his apartment. Tatsuya turned around, pulled the key out of his pocket, and pretended to open the door. In a split second, he turned back, pushed past the officers, and ran down the stairs. One of the officers held his rucksack, but it came off him, and he sped off. Unfortunately, none of the officers on the 4th floor had radios to inform the ones on the ground that their suspect was making his way downstairs. So, just like that, Tatsuya Ichihachi ran past them. A few hours later, he was spotted again on another street, now wearing shoes, but he managed to escape by running in zigzag motion. While some of the police officers were chasing after him, some had gone into his apartment. Inside, they found Lindsay Hawker's body bound and gagged in the bath, covered in sand mixed with compost soil, which he had soaked with a chemical used to decompose waste. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that Lindsay had been subjected to a long struggle. Tatsuya, who is obsessed with going to the gym, cycles about 25 kilometers every day, and holds a black belt in martial arts, gagged her with plastic ties, punched her in the face, and strangled her, which broke the cartilage in her neck. Lindsay must have tried to fight back as she also had training in martial arts, but she didn't stand a chance with her killer. Her belongings were scattered around the apartment along with Tatsuya's belongings, which included a computer, numerous manga comics, lots of empty cartons of pomegranate juice, and wigs, which left them wondering if he was gay or bisexual. After she died, he shaved off her head as it couldn't rot and made a total of 6 trips to a local hardware store to purchase the items and chemicals he mixed with the sand before filling the bath with it. Neighbours claim to have heard noises and dragging of metal on Sunday night. It is believed that Tatsuya intended to wait for the body to decompose or bury it in concrete. As the details of the crime unfolded, the police relentlessly searched for Tatsuya. They followed every report of sightings of him, including an entertainment district, Kabuchi, which was popular with homosexuals, but all their efforts proved futile. In March 2008, they released new photographs of the suspect dressed as a woman and Tatsuya's drawing of Lindsay, hoping that someone might recognize his drawings. As time went on, the investigation came to a dead end. By October 2008, the police suggested he might have committed suicide, but the Hawkers weren't having it. Bill saw it as a ploy to put an end to the investigation. Months turned into years, and still there was no sign of Tatsuya Ichihashi. The case grew colder until 2009.
As a father, I am so proud of her. To travel all this way to teach.
In 2009, as the second year of remembrance approached, the Japanese National Profile Agency increased the cash reward for information leading to Tatsuya's arrest from 1 million yen to 10 million. The agency then received information from a cosmetic surgery clinic in Nagoya, an Osaka construction worker, and an Osaka ferry employee who saw someone who looked like him. Tatsuya had undergone cosmetic surgery several times to remove the 2 moles on his cheeks, add a fold to his eyelids, make his lips thinner, and increase the height of his nose. It was after these surgeries he went to the cosmetic surgery clinic in Nagoya to have his nose lifted. Immediately, the police released the photograph taken before his latest surgery. After this information, an employee at an Osaka construction company said he had worked with Tatsuya for 14 months. On November 10, 2009, exactly 2 years and 7 months after he had been on the run, the police received a tip from an Osaka ferry employee about a man who resembled Tatsuya at the ferry station. Immediately, the police rushed to the station and met Tatsuya sitting with his head down. They asked him if he was Tatsuya Ichihashi, and as if he was tired, he nodded silently and was immediately arrested. At first, he remained silent, not confessing to his crimes, but on December 2nd, when his 23-day detention without charge expired, he admitted to killing Lindsay Ann Hawker. In his confessions relayed by his lawyer, he claimed he never had intentions of killing her. He added that she was still alive on the morning of the 26th because they talked throughout the night and watched Martin Luther King's speech on the internet. He said as he raped her, she screamed, and he had no choice but to choke her by putting his arms around her neck. He added that he tried artificial resurrection. Initially, he was charged with abandoning a body. Later, he served 2 warrants for rape and murder. Finally, on July 21st, 2011, 4 years after his crime, the now 32-year-old Tatsuya Ichihachi was sentenced to life imprisonment. Although the Hawker family requested the death penalty, the Japanese government decided he didn't deserve that since he had no previous convictions, was young, and could still be rehabilitated. While in prison, Tatsuya wrote a book titled Until I Was Arrested to tell his side of the story. He offered the Hawker family all royalties, but they rejected it. Leave your thoughts in the comments, like, share, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. See you in the next video.